Welcome, everyone. Thank you for joining us for our series, Rabbis in Uniform. Again, this is a series that highlights rabbis who serve in the U.S. Military or in different ways that are a little bit unique to what we think of normal rabbis, let's say normal rabbi jobs, even though this is a normal rabbi job, as we will see, just one that not a lot of people know about. And this is huge supporter of military. Personally, my grandfather was a chaplain in the U.S. Army. My father-in-law, of blessed memory, was in the Navy, and my stepson also is a Navy vet. So really important to me to highlight different people in service. And so today we welcome Larry Bazer. Larry, how are you doing?
Doing well.
Great. Glad to hear it. So why don't you tell us just quickly, your rank, what part of the military you're in, and maybe just a little bit about your job.
Sounds good. So my name is Larry Bazer. I've been a rabbi for 27 and a half years now. I was ordained from JTS in 1993. I hold two actual titles, and I'll go into that. So I am the Deputy Director for the Joint Chaplain's Office of the National Guard Bureau, and I am the Army Senior Chaplain for the Army National Guard. And I hold the rank of Colonel. I'm actually, just because I've been around for so long, the senior ranking Jewish chaplain in the entire United States Armed Forces by date of rank. Just means I've been around a long time. But something I'm very proud of in my career. I started in 1989 as a chaplain candidate, which is a program that both Army, Navy, Air Force have to sort of introduce the military chaplaincy to seminarians from all denominations. And so I started in 1989, where I put up my right arm and took allegiance to the United States military. And I did that, I'm actually very proud to say this as a starting point, I did that at the Jerusalem Consulate in Jerusalem. So the U.S. Consulate in Jerusalem.
Wow.
So that was my little quick claim to fame. So I am in the United States Army, so I'm an Army officer, but I'm specifically in the National Guard Bureau. And what that means is there are three main there's now four services, let me say this. No, actually, we're up to 5, 6. Bottom line, Army, Navy, Air Force, Marines, Coast Guard, National Guard is both Army and Air, but I'll explain that. And Space Force, we have a new Space Force. But I'm active duty in the National Guard. So I'm a Title 10 soldier with the National Guard Bureau. And so my job, which is really neat, first of all, I was a full-time pulpit rabbi for 25 years, and I was always a guardsman through most of that. And I was a state chaplain in Massachusetts, where my family still sort of lives. I'm down here on a single tour. And my role, it was an opportunity. I was state chaplain there, and an opportunity opened up here at Guard Bureau for my rank, the only one. And I'm now full-time for the last 2.5 years, which has really been an incredible experience, especially with what's going on now. So what do I do? It's really the question in the National Guard. Well, first of all, so you have the Army, Navy, Air Force, Marines. Army has both an Army Reserve component, which is federalized. They're sort of Title 10 under the Army, Big Army. And the National Guard, there's 54 National Guards corresponding to the 54 states, territories, in the District of Columbia. That's really my clients and who I work with, my partners in all this. And so the National Guard is state-based, where their commander-in-chief during most of the time would be the governors. So the whole COVID-19 response is a National Guard response, essentially. When a hurricane hits, it's the National Guard. When a blizzard hits, civil disturbance, it's been National Guard. So my position and sort of my first primary hat, which is being the Joint Chaplain, the Deputy Director for the Joint Chaplain's Office, is that I oversee both policy, but also domestic operations response, religious response, and state partnership program. Domestic operations is when there's a hurricane, I sort of coordinate and pull together and collaborate all the religious responses that a state chaplaincy would be doing in their National Guard. And I sort of take the information, coordinate with my federal partners, and push it up to our 4-star levels. State partnership program is that all the 54 have a state partner in another country, or most of the developing nations. And so I helped coordinate that. For example, I was on a conference call that our office helped put together with AFRICOM, in the United States Africa Command. And they're based out of Germany, and we were doing a collaborative conference call between their office, our office, their other federal partners, and some of our state chaplains. So we helped put that together. That's our state partnership mission. Policy is looking at religious response. How do we help that for things of religious freedom type issues? How does that affect the force and guidance? On my Army side, it's a lot of personnel and preparing our Army National Guard religious support teams for the war fight. So I get to see things at the, as I say, the 30,000 foot level, and have an influence really nationally and internationally, which has been incredible.
Wow, that's great. That's fascinating. Yeah, the National Guard sometimes I think gets a little bit forgotten when there aren't the disasters or COVID and civil disturbances. For all those different reasons, we here in the Twin Cities are very familiar with the National Guard and having seen them a little bit more than probably everybody would have wished, but understandably so, why they were here. And it's important and an important aspect of the service that we need to focus on and remember. And so I know a common question, let's say, is asked when you talk to somebody who's in service, whether chaplain or soldier or other things, specialist, is, okay, well, why that branch, right? Do you just really love planes? Do you like the boats and just like water?
Ships. I got to defend my Navy friends.
Right? Do you like ships? Do you like aircraft carriers? Do you like being in planes? Although Rabbi Warren said that they're in planes more so sometimes than the Air Force. He said they're busy making golf courses and chapels. That was Rabbi Warren last week. But why the branch that you chose, and why that led you to that path?
So that's a great question. So in full disclosure, I actually originally applied when I was in seminary to the Navy chaplain program because I thought the uniforms were cool and I thought aircraft carriers would be a neat thing to serve on. I actually had asthma as a kid and they wouldn't take me. And a mentor of mine, just in military chaplaincy, Rabbi Arnold Resnikoff, I talked to him and he guided me toward the Army and said, hey, once you get in, you could always transfer into the Navy. Well, I never did, and it's paid off. I actually, I've always had a love with the military. Always had this idea it would be really neat to serve our nation and to wear a uniform. And I'm very proud that on my uniform, the United States Army also has the Sereti Brod, and as a Jewish chaplain. But for me, it is. I played soldier as a kid. I had GI Joes, so it's always been a part of me. But I do think it's this ability to serve in a very distinct way and to serve as a rabbi, not just as a Jewish chaplain, but specifically as a rabbi. So that as far as like the other branches, I will disagree. I think most of the time Navy gets to play on these little boats and most of the time they're landlocked. It's really the Army that makes a difference in this world. And most of the time, Army is a much better football team. So I want to say that.
That is true. That is very, very true, right? And that's the thing that I love about doing these conversations with military is that everybody's in it together in the military, but we all still have our fond feelings for which branch we are in. and
because I have dear friends who are in the Air Force, I won't comment about how they build their bases first. Though rumor has it, they first plan the golf course and then they build the runways around it.
Right.
In the Army, hey, we're on the ground and we're in the dirt. So
right, no, it's true. And so you have like a unique position from some of the, and I mean, all chaplains and rabbis within the military can go into all these different avenues. So how does your day differ from when you were a pulpit rabbi, right? Because you, I think, are in that unique position that you have really done both fully, full pulpit work and now full-time here. So for those who might not, who kind of think they know what I do on a daily basis, how does maybe my day or your day from when you were a full-time pulpit rabbi differ from what you're doing now?
It is in a way very different, and it's hard. Part of it is before I sort of go into it, is the caveat that everything has changed with COVID. So in a way, I'm probably more in a normal routine that I did beforehand. That second. So I will say, like all days, I would always get up and start my day with davening. Most of the time, I'm just on my own davening. I'm actually what's called a geographical bachelor. My family's still up in Massachusetts, and I'm down here, so I have an apartment down here. But I get in, I'm probably doing, like, my pulpit days many times, usually between 10 to 11 hours a day, give or take, sometimes longer, sometimes shorter. But it is vastly, what I don't have is prepping for the overall life cycle events for, I'm a congregant now, which has really been wonderful. So like most Jewish chaplains will have a Jewish service they're running. I actually don't have that responsibility. So I get to be a congregant, but I still go to shul. And I actually go to one of our colleagues, Rabbi Steve Breen synagogue, who is an Air Force reservist. So that's where I ended up joining and davening quite a bit. But my day will be a lot of meetings. A lot of times for meetings on Teams, but sometimes in person. Through most of COVID, I've actually been going into the office most of the time because at my level, the people I work with, even though most people are teleworking, there are people here that have to be in the building and they need a chaplain. So a lot of it is that side. So my work is very sort of administratively staff oriented, but I'm giving sort of guidance to the people, that my staff that's working with me. So what are the things that we tackle it? Actually, if I use today as a quick example, my boss is a one-star general chaplain who is part-time, and together we met up here and went over to the Pentagon. I don't work at the Pentagon. I work at National Guard Bureau, which is about 10 minutes away, but we went to the Pentagon and had a meeting with the Air Force Chief of Chaplains and the Deputy Chief of Chaplains to talk about the National Guard and our relationship. So it's that type of bridge building. We got back and we hopped on this telecom with AFRICOM and various state partners. I'll be working some policy issues coming up, and then it's building a training session. Other days, it's just reading through various documents to see where I would have to give my level, which is pretty high up, a colonel level of authority approval, like yes, no, concur, not concur. There are usually on days I'll also then sit in on briefings across the nation. And a lot of this is all telecom. So I remember like one of the first times I'm down at a secure area in a building, and it's almost like in the movie, big screen with, the other team was at the Pentagon and people from across the 54 all online, and I'm giving a briefing. And there are times when I'm giving a briefing, and usually I'll say what's going on, and a lot of times I'll offer sort of that spiritual word at the end. And I've done everything from quote a famous, like a rock quote, and talk about how it relates. So, because one of the generals who gets the briefing loves heavy metal. So the challenge was, can you do like Judas Priest and find a quote you could put in? That's the spiritual word for the day. But another time, and I think this is really where I feel my role as a rabbi in this, is my end quote will be from Abraham Joshua Heschel. So one of his statements, and it was just recently with all that was going on, when I put at the end, when he said, when I was younger, I sought after people who were intelligent, but as I grew older, I sought after people who were kind. And I use that one or two settings. And that's what people want. With all the stuff that we do that have national implications, is helping them sort of be grounded in a greater picture. And that's what I believe is the role of a chaplain. And I think what's special about a rabbi, where I could bring in Pirkei Avot and say, a great sage once said, and make it universal, but the message is very clear. And there is also days when I'm doing counseling with people. I'm working on one Jewish fellow guardsman who had a baby not too long ago and asked me when COVID is someone allowed to do the baby naming. So it is a lot of, in a way, a little bit more like being in the whole world, except I really, unless there's emergencies, I don't have evening meetings.
Yes, there you go.
That's
And you're
congregation.
right, and you don't go to the JCC or the Federation for your meeting. You get to go to the Pentagon. It's quite a different hop, skip, and a jump for you.
I will go to the. And so a couple things. I'm still. So you talk about this thing. I am still a kid. That I can't believe that I can walk in. I go to the gate at the Pentagon or the special door, and I put my ID down, and the door opens for me. So, or to attend, really high level briefings, and to be a part of it. And so sometimes just offering a word that will make a difference. I've had a chance to travel, so to go out to Colorado to NORAD and NORTHCOM, which oversees the federal part that oversees the defense of the United States. It's also NORAD is what tracks Santa Claus or Hanukkah Harry during that time of season. I've been to Europe for various trainings and briefings, so it's been really very, very exciting. Challenging now with COVID, but in its own regard, rewarding.
Right. No, that's amazing. And so you had mentioned sort of being able to travel, whether that was for briefings or things like that. I think for a lot of us, when we think military, we think deployment or all expenses paid trip, courtesy of the U.S. government. So I'm curious, where have you been deployed? If you have been, what was the longest time? And could you maybe give us sort of an eye into what that looks like? Because most of us will never sort of know what it's like to be away from everything that we know for who knows what's a period of time.
So it's a great question. So 2011, when I was a full-time rabbi and state chaplain, I actually one of our units was going over, and they needed a senior level chaplain. So I deployed in 2011 to Kabul, Afghanistan, where I was the command chaplain for the Kabul-based cluster. So all the religious life that took place in the Kabul area of U.S. bases, I oversaw that religious life. Wow. And a little bit of travel in the country here and there, but some really unique opportunities. So you really do sort of leave everything. I didn't have to take that much clothing in the end because they will give you all your uniforms and everything when you go over. I was lucky enough, I have my own little 8x6 half a Connex container room. I would actually say it was an incredibly rewarding experience. It was scary at times. My vehicle was shot at once. Times I would think, but there I travel a lot. When we go to a lot of places, we travel by helicopter, which I'm still think is really cool. But there it was both looking after the troops on our base, multifaceted, and looking at the bigger picture advisement. Some of the real honors I had was to give I did the invocation or the prayer on New Year's Day at the NATO headquarters for the Afghan operation, and 4-star General Allen was the presiding, and it was sort of remember all those who were lost during the week, multi from all the different countries, and I gave the here from all these troops, it was 11 minutes or that, and not my speaking, that was short, but to be able to do that. It was also to connect with, I didn't do that much engagement with the local community, a little bit here and there. We had a great experience where Legends of Space came to visit, like on a USO tour. So like, you read about Bob Hope's stuff, they still come around and visit the troops. This one was Legends from Space, and I had to have dinner with Neil Armstrong, of blessed memory.
Wow.
And got to know some of them. But one of the most rewarding parts, and was building a Hanukkah menorah, the Hanukkah on the base. We had a big lit one, electric, because it would be windy and stuff like that and safer. But to light the Hanukkah menorah in our square, and there at about 5:30 at night, it was pitch black and freezing. 25 people gathered around to light the first light, and it was very, very moving. And the next day, one of our soldiers who never had a bar mitzvah officiated his bar mitzvah for the first night of Hanukkah.
Wow.
First day of Hanukkah. So it was an incredible experience to be able to do that, and to see a whole different part of the world. To meet the Afghans I met were lovely. But you are away from home and in a combat zone.
Right.
So it's a neat feeling to come home and meet your family again.
I'm sure. So just, I'll give one more minute just for a quick question here. And that is one thing that you would like to share with people who are viewing this about rabbis in service, chaplains, any clergy in service, or just the U.S. military that you think people should hear or would like to know.
Oh, that's great. And I would say first and foremost, one of the questions I always get is, so how many Jews are in the military?
Right.
And, unlike World War II, grandfather's eras and things like that, where so many Jews serve, put on the uniform and serve in all different capacities. We're probably about less than 1% of the U.S. military is Jewish, but they need rabbi. So my answer when people say, how many Jews are there? I say, not a lot, but more than you think. And there are still people that are very surprised that as a rabbi, I'm serving our country either when I was part-time or now full-time. But it's been a defining part of my rabbinate, and being able to really get to understand. I consider myself very knowledgeable and respectful and caring for other faith groups. I could tell you differences between all the different denominations in Christianity, which we usually don't get at seminary. Yeah. But how to think that way. But more so, what I think our role, both as Jews and as a rabbi in the military, is for me to be Orla Goyim, a light into the nations. That's what we do as a people. That's what I absolutely believe in uniform. And I think rabbis being there to be that light, to sort of help focus the light. And maybe one of the best ways to sort of bring it full circle, just the other day when I was at the Pentagon, I was stopping in one of the offices, and I saw one of the folks who works in the office, Lieutenant Colonel in the Air Force, Jewish, and he says, "Hey, you got to meet Lieutenant Colonel so and so. He's a member of the tribe," and brings me around the corner, and then connecting with this person and learning about his family. That's what becomes the connective point. And so I would say to everyone, I still believe if you see someone in uniform, please thank them for their service and what it means. If you have a loved one who's thinking about joining the military and you think, what are you doing that? Are you crazy? Please encourage them. Please thank them for considering it. Because I do think it's important, being Jewish, to be able to put on the American uniform. And again, I'm very proud to serve, and I'm at the twilight of my career. I probably got a good 3 to 5 years left, but it's been incredible to make a difference in people's lives.
Well, thank you so much, Larry, for being with us and for sharing your story. And to everyone who's watching this, please, thank you again for joining us. And be sure to thank anybody that you know or in your family or that you just happen to see in uniform for their service. And of course, Larry, thank you for your service, especially, let's say, doubly so this week with it being Veterans Week, Veterans Day this past week, but to everybody who has served now in the future, thank you. And thank you for joining us for Rabbis in Uniform. Yes.